We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Friday. We've had a hell of a week. We now know that Donald Trump, within 10 days, will be a broke ass bitch. All of his companies will go into receivership, and other people will be running his companies to the point where they're going to dissolve said companies. This is going to be devastating to Donald Trump. It's going to be a big problem. We've talked a lot about it here on the podcast, but sue me. I love good news and I like repeating it. We also have a impending government shutdown supposed to take effect Sunday because that's October 1st. Nothing will probably happen Sunday. The shutdown will be really affected or felt on Monday. That's assuming they do shut it down. But don't worry about the Republicans because they're great with time management. They spent all day yesterday having an impeachment hearing that got into more of a food fight, people arguing with one another, and they found no evidence. They showed nothing. It was an absolute waste of time. And like I told you before, let these motherfuckers have hearings. They will just embarrass themselves on higher levels than they already have. And that's what happened yesterday. It was a complete embarrassment for the Republicans, and the Democrats just sat back and took pot shots. We'll talk more about that later in the podcast. Last night, I had a good night. My wife and I went over to babysit my granddaughter for a couple hours. We met her across the street from where she lives at a farmer's market. She loves going to the farmer's market. Her mom dropped her off to us, and we cruised around the farmer's market. Now, she likes the lemonade, and Grandpa will buy pretty much anything she wants. She likes cotton candy. We had to buy it when Grandma wasn't looking. You got to do those things now and again. She likes cheese curds. We got some cheese curds too. And we were only there for about like 15, 20 minutes. And then we walked back to the my son's apartment. And he works for city government in this town. So he was out there manning a stand and talking to people and doing whatever. So we took the little one back to his apartment and hung out and did some puzzles and stuff. And she ate chili, and it was a good old time. But she's such a goofy kid. She looks at me and she said, "Grandpa, you're silly." I go, "Yeah, I know." Grandma says, "He definitely is silly." And so one moment she looks at me, she says, "I'm going to call you Grampy from here on out." I said, "That's fine. You can call me whatever you want, honey. Just call me whatever name." And then after that, she proceeded to call me Grandpa every time. I don't know what she was talking about. I don't know why she even brought it up, but she can call me whatever she wants. But we had a great time, and there's one thing that happened that I laugh about every time I think about it, but I feel guilty about it. My Grandma gave her a shower before Dad came home. That's usually a big help. And she's doing pretty good. She's in the shower, kind of taking care of herself with Grandma there watching. She's going potty on the potty, so that's a big fucking deal. But she comes out of the shower and she's got the towel over her head, and she's making noises like a ghost because Halloween is coming up and she's trying to scare me. Ooh. And she's walking along with this towel overhead. Of course, she can't see. So she's walking toward me, and I say something, and she's coming toward my voice, and she runs smack into the couch. Doesn't cry, doesn't do anything. She's like a Roomba or one of those robot vacuum cleaners. She hits it, she backs up, spins, and then goes around it. Never pulls the towel off her head. She's a crazy girl. She makes me laugh every time I see her. That's why I enjoy so much hanging out with her. Anyway, that put me in a good mood to come back here and do something like this. I wanted to thank Eric, too, for coming in yesterday. We got a lot of stuff going on, and sometimes it's helpful to have another mind, another voice add to the program. I can do the show myself. I sometimes prefer doing it with somebody else because it makes my job a lot easier. It's just a conversation and the prep isn't quite as extensive. Now, don't get me wrong. When I do this show, I'm not doing a ton of prep. I'm not working on this 6 hours, but I put things together and get a rough idea what I'm going to be talking about when it's just me. When it's somebody else, I just turn on the fucking mic and we talk about the various topics. And I always enjoy that. So thanks to Eric for coming on. Now, as we get into this show, I've got two emails. They're both signed by Jeff. Now, I will tell you in these cases, these are two different Jeffs. One we've heard from before and one we haven't. The first one isn't really an email. It came off the website where the podcast is. So that's cool. Now, Jeff starts out his message, and I'm sure he's talking about Donald Trump here. He doesn't say that, but I'm sure he is. He says, when he rants on Truth Social about nobody got hurt, they got paid back, yada, yada, yada. Didn't the banks and the insurance companies lose money because they gave him better rates because he lied about his net worth for those properties? Here's the thing. Whether the insurance company or the banks lost money or didn't lose money, they were put at risk that they wouldn't normally put themselves under because Donald Trump lied. He lied. And no matter what you say about it, nobody got hurt, nobody lost money. It's still fucking fraud. It doesn't matter whether they lost money or not. Now, on the other side of the coin, where he was decreasing the value of his properties and he was getting a better deal on taxes because he was lying about how cheap his properties were. There are victims there, and those victims are the United States of America and all of us. We're expected to pay our tax responsibilities. We're expected to pay our fair share, and Donald Trump did not. So for the amount of money he claimed to be making, he would have had to pay a substantial amount of income tax, but because he cheated, he paid less than that. So there is an injured party. People of this country didn't get as much money going into the government coffers as should have, and that too is fucking fraud. But here's what you need to know. This deal with Letitia James and Judge Engeron, this deal's done. I get a kick out of all these people say, well, it's just that. It can't be this. It should be this. Say whatever you want. It's a done deal. The judge has made his decision. Donald Trump is going to have most, if not all, of his companies dissolved. Now, he was saying something like, well, I got people in Saudi Arabia that could buy all this stuff and we could be done with it. Yeah, Donnie, that's not going to happen. And of course, Saudi Arabia would be your go-to people. How much under the table corrupt money have you already gotten from them? See, the thing is, Donnie Trump isn't going to have the option to sell his properties. That is going to be handled by the receivers, the three people they appoint to run these companies and make sure everybody's paid. Here's what happens. Donald Trump also said that he has no debt. That's absolutely ridiculous. He's in debt up to his eyeballs. And he needs some recompense out there. These loans have to be paid off. Basically, what the government is saying is, you really followed this shit up. There's a bunch of fraud. So now what we're going to do is meticulously liquidate these companies, pay back as many debts as we possibly can. And then hopefully we can get everybody back to even and rectify this stuff. Now, that's just the liability part of this. The liability is he's losing his companies, his source of income, because when these are in receivership and the process of being dissolved, he isn't receiving the income from the properties like you would normally do. So that's going to take a pretty big bite out of his income, if not all of his income. Ultimately, these things will be gone. Donald Trump won't have anything in New York. Now, some people have said to me, well, it's just the New York stuff. He'll still have stuff in Florida and Bedminster. No, not necessarily, because Donald Trump has these LLCs, and there's hundreds of them, and they run kind of like a spider web between everything. Like Doral in Florida is under an LLC that's connected in New York, and that would run right down the pipeline and would probably close that too. Now, other people will say, well, at least he'll be able to keep Mar-a-Lago because that's his home. No, it's not, because that's owned by an LLC, as is Bedminster in New Jersey. Now, I don't know if he has a property that he just owns outright, but I doubt it, because Donnie is all about trying to grift and trying to cheat taxes. The best way to do that is have a million companies and have it run through a million companies so you can avoid paying taxes. The only problem with it is that because he did that, he doesn't have any home properties. And anywhere he stays, like Mar-a-Lago or Bedminster, he's staying there because he's an employee of the company. He gets housing because of the company. Well, if those companies no longer exist, well, then Donald Trump can't live there anymore. So we're going to have to figure out a way he can find some place to move. Now, I'd offer something up, but I only have a 2-bedroom condo. My son's currently staying in there, so I'm booked. I'm booked. But if any of you have an extra room or something, I don't think you have to worry about Melania and Barron. I think they're gone. You just need one big orange tub of shit. Who needs a room? And this guy is in for a rude awakening. He's lived his whole life with people serving him. And when this is all said and done, he won't have any of that. He'll be living like the paupers he looked down his nose at for so many years. Donald Trump is done financially. Now, the next step, come Monday, they are going to start the trial. Now, the trial is going to be interesting. Because people are saying, why have the trial if they've already decided the liability? Well, there's a few other issues that they have to go over. And then they have to determine how much Donald Trump is going to have to pay once they'll decide how much he actually owes. Now, $250 million is just a starting point. It could double that. It could triple that. It could quadruple that. It could be over $1 billion after it's all said and done. So you see what's going to happen here is they're going to liquidate all his properties. They're going to pay back the debt, and Donald Trump is not going to have the sum of money he needs to pay the fine, so the properties would be sold to cover that as well. Chances are excellent that he won't have enough value in the properties to cover that expense. Now, if he does go over that, I think he'll get some money back. But remember, whatever money he gets back will be the last money he gets, because he'll be earning no income from these properties because he won't own those motherfuckers anymore. Donald Trump is in some deep shit. And if you've always been saying nothing's going to happen or when's something going to happen, well, it happened. At least this first step happened. And the thing about it is that the only thing he's got to look forward to is criminal prosecutions and probably jail time. It's not a good period for Donald Trump. 2023 and 2024, not going to be good years for good old dirty diaper Donnie. All right, this next email comes from Jeff. I think we call him Garage Door Jeff. He says, Boomer, you're the best, and I'm forever grateful for your changing of my perspective re-Trump and what his future looks like. It was a great gift. But you boys were having a ball today on the podcast, meaning me and Eric. You guys had him an inch from literally homeless, or at best in a crappy 50s, 1,100 square foot haven in Sunrise, Florida. It ain't no Palm Beach, on an eighth of an acre lot with nasty carpeting and a period correct green appliances. It could happen. It could happen. On a somewhat related note, it's also fun to describe Trump as a complete moron, and he is. I seriously don't believe that he can read in a normal way. I doubt he's ever read a book. I think he's incapable of it. Now, I will tell you this. When George W. Bush was president, I said, this guy is an idiot. He's an absolute imbecile. But George W. Bush makes Donald Trump, or Donald Trump makes George Bush look like fucking Einstein. Seriously. I mean, George W. Bush, not the brightest president ever, but in comparison to Donald Trump, there is none. Donald Trump, if he was working in a fast food setting, he'd be too dumb for that. His only saving grace was that his dad was rich. He grew up in a rich family, and he got away with doing stupid things when people bailed him out. And they bailed him out over and over a fucking again. All right, Jeff goes on to say, but they talked about it in the USFL book I just read. In that setting, he was dealing with other owners, captains of industry, and in a couple of cases, con men, but all powerful figures. And he bullied all of these men right into a corner. There's some nasty ability that he has to bend people around him through sheer force of will. They described it in the book. And this is all about bullying and people's gullibility in believing the bully. Donald Trump probably went in there acting like the most powerful, the most wealthy guy, and these people bowed to him. That's what bullies do. And bullies only win until the people, their victims, cower. When they push back, that's when the bullies fold up and die. And the USFL, it took a while for them to do it. And actually, the USFL folks didn't do it. And that's part of the reason, one of the main reasons why the USFL died. Donald Trump's personality and his corrupt and criminal behavior is the reason why the NFL owners would not allow him to buy a team. Jeff says, I just want this orange criminal maniac out of our collective lives. Fuck Trump. Keep it up, Boomer. Best, Jeff. Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that immensely. I appreciate the emails. Please never hesitate to send me an email. I enjoy having them. I think it's important to have your input on the program. I wanted to mention one other thing, too. Right after Judge Engeron announced that he was going to be taking all of Donnie's shit, right after that, there was word that came from Judge Tanya Chutkan. Now, Tanya Chutkan is the judge who's overseeing the January 6th insurrection upcoming trial. Now, Donnie wasn't really feeling Judge Chutkan. He didn't like her. Could be because she's a woman, could be because she's black, or it could be that she's been extra tough on a lot of the insurrection folks that have come through her court. Nonetheless, Donnie Trump asked her to recuse herself, which is ironic because it doesn't sound like judges recusing themselves is a thing anymore. I mean, Judge Alito doesn't do it. Clarence Thomas doesn't do it. Aileen Cannon doesn't do it. So why would Chutkan do it? Fact is, Chutkan said basically, fuck yourself. She wrote a very eloquent paper explaining why she wasn't going to recuse herself. Donald Trump's claims were fucking ridiculous, so she's not recusing herself. Now, he might appeal it, but it won't go anywhere. You know, keep in mind, Donald Trump has done a couple of hundred appeals since 2020. He's won zero, well, maybe one, and it was minimal and really didn't do anything. But out of a couple hundred appeals, he's lost 99.9% of them. So she's not going to recuse herself. And remember, the first two trials with Sidney Powell and Cheesebro, that's supposed to be coming October 23rd. So we're talking less than a month away. We still don't know for sure when Donald Trump and the rest of them are going to be tried and how many trials there will be, but we will wait and see. Everything's starting to fall in on Donald Trump. It's not bad enough. He's got 91 felony charges. He's now had taken his whole financial life away from him. I said on a TikTok earlier today, when I think of Donald Trump in this current situation with his financial stuff and property being taken, it reminds me way back in the might have been the early 80s. Eddie Murphy had a special that was on cable. I think I was living in, I don't know where I was living, not in Minnesota. I was living in some small town in Arizona, working for a little radio station. Had nothing going on. So when this uh, special came on, I was excited because finally I had something entertaining to watch. Anyway, Eddie Murphy was on this special and he was talking about his dad, who apparently had a drinking problem. And Eddie had talked about all the problems he had with his father, who got out of hand when he was drinking. And one day, when Eddie was a little kid, he says, I'm running away. I'm tired of this stuff. And his dad said to him, go ahead. You'll be a 7-year-old walking the dog, no home motherfucker. And I love the line. I remembered it all these years, but that's kind of like Donnie. He's not a 7-year-old chronologically, but emotionally he is. He doesn't like dogs, so we have to give him some leeway there. But a no home motherfucker, no home having motherfucker. That sounds like Donnie Trump sometime soon. All right. Now, as I was talking about, we've got this impending shutdown, literally within hours, probably less than 48 hours. The shutdown date would be October 1st. And now more and more people are seeming to think that it's going to happen. You'll remember I said, I don't think it's going to happen. They'll pull something out at the last minute. I still kind of think they will, because this will be so damaging for the Republicans. I can't believe they would let it happen. But, this is Washington, D.C., and these are members of the House, and they aren't the brightest motherfuckers in the world. So maybe they'll do the stupid thing and allow it to shut down. I think if it does shut down, it's not going to be for very long. I'm guessing it'll be a few days. But anyway, we've got all this work that needs to be done in deciding on the appropriations, the budgets, the bills, and all this stuff. And what do the Republicans do? Well, let's have an impeachment inquiry hearing all day yesterday, 6 fucking hours. The impeachment inquiry against President Joe Biden isn't working out so great for Republicans this week, as we suspected. I said before, all the other hearings they had, they ended up with nothing but embarrassment. Now, this would just bring it to a higher level so everybody sees how embarrassing they are. And that's pretty much what happened. It really shot down some futures for some Republicans, but it could have boosted the comedy careers for a couple Democrats. The Democrats were sitting back just taking pot shots, making jokes, and making fun of these dumb motherfuckers. And I got to tell you, the Republicans weren't happy about it. There was a lot of yelling and screaming. It was a literal shit show. Now, during the hearing Thursday in Washington, 2 expert witnesses called by the Republicans said there wasn't currently enough evidence to impeach Biden, who was accused of corruption related to his vice presidency years ago. Think about that. They've been investigating this for nearly, 5 years? And in those 5 years, they have found no evidence, 0 evidence. But still, they want to pursue this. Still, they need to look into it, mainly because they got to have something against Joe Biden. They've got to tarnish his image somehow. And frankly, it's not working. Now, there's a new guy in the House of Representatives, actually, a couple of new people in the House of Representatives that I've taken a shine to, because they're exactly the kind of Democrats we need. They're kind of in your face. They don't hold their tongue, and they go after dumb motherfuckers. First one is Representative Jared Moskowitz of Florida and Jasmine Crockett of Texas. Ironic that they would be from Florida and Texas, isn't it? They made things more uncomfortable for the GOP counterparts with some merciless mockery, noting that the inquiry is essentially an act of revenge for Donald Trump's impeachment during his own presidency. And of course, that's what it is. I think if more reasonable minds prevailed, meaning any Republican, they wouldn't be doing this, but they're taking their orders directly from Donald Trump. And in spite of it being ill advised, they're going ahead and doing it anyway. They don't care how they end up looking. Now, Jared Moskowitz said this: as a former director of emergency management, I know a disaster when I see one. And he then noted that GOP's first witness's evidence was lacking even after 8 months of investigation. Moskowitz then said, boy, that's awkward. He also presented graphics with quotes from Representative James Comer and other Republicans who acknowledged a dearth of evidence. One image showed a quote from Senator Chuck Grassley conceding that Republicans are not interested in whether the accusations against Biden are accurate. I'm sure he said to himself later, did I say that out loud? Now, Moskowitz didn't stop there with the visual aids. Using a whiteboard, he counted the number of times Biden has been impeached or indicted in comparison with Trump, who currently faces 91 criminal charges across 4 indictments. Spoiler alert, Trump beat Biden handily in impeachments and indictments and charges. Now, Moskowitz and his prop comedy earned some laughs. Crockett may have stolen the show with her routine, noting how often Republicans mentioned the word if and the name of the president's son, Hunter Biden. If they had continued to say if and Hunter, and we were playing a drinking game, I would be drunk by now, she said, arguing that the Republicans had yet to focus on Joe Biden himself and what he's supposedly done to warrant the impeachment. Crockett recalled wondering, what is the crime? I can't seem to find the crime, and no one has testified what crime they believe the President of the United States has committed. And she's absolutely right. There is no crime. There is no evidence. There are no witnesses. They're just trying to create and throw bullshit into the narrative. Now, to demonstrate Republicans' hypocrisy and crime, she presented a photo that appeared to show FBI evidence obtained from Trump's Florida resort. She said, when we start talking about things that look like evidence, they want to act like they're blind. They don't know what this is, she said, before referring to a government document allegedly stored next to a toilet at Trump's club. This is why I like this woman. This is what she said. These are our national secrets. Looks like they're sitting in the shitter to me. See, this is exactly what we expected would happen. They think they're doing something, and in every hearing, they do nothing. They show nothing. They prove nothing. There is no evidence, and they embarrass themselves. And that's why I said, look, you need to let them go ahead and do it, because they'll just embarrass themselves further and on a higher platform, which is what they did. And it sounds like there's some infighting with the Republicans, because some of the more reasonable-minded Republicans are now getting a little embarrassed at the behavior of these dumb fucks. And I don't know if that's going to change anything or if they're going to continue to have hearings. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, we shouldn't be talking about hearings with no evidence right now. Like I say, we have an impending shutdown that's supposed to happen on October 1st, which happens to be tomorrow, next day, Saturday. Yeah, that's tomorrow. What the fuck am I thinking? Anyway, so it's supposed to shut down. They haven't done anything. Kevin McCarthy has said that he hasn't even approached the Democrats. And frankly, if they're going to get anything done with these MAGA fucks, they're going to need some cooperation from the Democrats. They have to. Now, The only thing they could probably accomplish right now would be to get a short-term stopgap, like a month or 2 weeks or a month and a half or something like that, to give them more time to figure this out. Like that's going to make a difference. You've got these Freedom Caucus fucks set in their minds that they want to shut down the government. They want to shut it down. They don't care who it hurts. They think it's going to hurt Joe Biden, but it's not. They're too dumb to realize that the Republicans will be blamed for this whole situation. And therein lies the real problem for the Republicans. Like I said before, it's not about Republicans against Democrats, it's Republicans against Republicans. They can't work together. Now, there is some talk that they will try to get a vote of no confidence for Kevin McCarthy. I hope they don't do that before we get some kind of resolution to the budgets and the appropriations, because without a Speaker of the House, we literally can get nothing done. I don't personally think that MAGA has the votes to kick Kevin McCarthy out. And as I said in previous podcasts, the moment they do it, the moment they fail, that group of people becomes inconsequential and very exposed for being very fucking weak. So I don't think they'll actually pull that trigger. Well, I shouldn't say that. These dumb fucks have done dumber stuff than that. So I guess they could. We'll see if they come out with a quick stopgap sometime later today, maybe, or tomorrow. Because the first is Sunday. Yeah, first is Sunday. And they get a little extra breathing room because of that. Because on Sunday, while it's the first and the country would be officially shut down, most departments aren't running right now that day anyway, so they aren't losing anything. It wouldn't be till Monday that that it has an impact on the country. So they may, as I've told you before, politicians are big on the dramatic. So they'll probably wait till the last minute of the last day and come up with some short stopgap thing to give them a little more time, because it's not like they've had a lot of time. They've had months and months and months to do this. They've had since the debt ceiling thing was set. The deal that was supposed to go through today or tomorrow or whatever prior to the shutdown was already agreed upon between Biden and McCarthy. That was already agreed upon, but McCarthy went back on that deal mainly because MAGA put pressure on him. So this is all about Kevin McCarthy's fault. He knows he's going to get the heat, and he knows he is going to look bad when it's all said and done. That's why I'm surprised if they actually let the country shut down. It's going to be bad for the Republicans, but it's going to be really, really bad for Kevin McCarthy. All right, we will quick break, and we will be right back. Well, if you watched the impeachment hearing and realized it was nothing more than a shit show, that was nothing compared to the GOP debate from the night before. The GOP debate, the second debate between the presidential candidates in the Republican Party, all trying to win the nomination. Donald Trump, the leader, far and away the leader in the Republican class, didn't show up. No, instead, he decided that he would give a talk trying to get support from the United Auto Workers. Unfortunately, he did it at a plant that was non-union, and there were no UAW folks there. Now, there were some people holding signs that referenced UAW, and when they were interviewed later, they go, yeah, no, we don't work for them. These people were no doubt paid plants, as Donald Trump is wont to do these days. He fills stands with people he pays to come out and clap for him. That's how desperate Donnie Trump is. So what were we left with in the GOP debate? Well, we had the same cast of characters. We had Ron DeSantis, who is socially awkward, and he's sitting up there saying, and the thing is, they all kind of went after Donald Trump a little bit. They started to feel a little emboldened. And Ron DeSantis says, and where's Donald Trump? He should be here. He owes it to you people. God damn it. Ron DeSantis is such a socially awkward, creepy motherfucker. He can't make himself look good to save his fucking soul. He's sinking fast. His support has dropped by 50% in the last few months, and it's not going the right way. Ron DeSantis won't be around when it comes to winning the nomination to run for president under the Republican Party. He's just not going to. Now, of course, what's left in this group of folks is a bunch of babbling clowns that couldn't draw flies if they had dog shit covering their bodies. They all got 2, 3, 4%. Vivek Ramaswamy was there. And there were some interesting comments that were made. This is in line with the Republicans and how they are spending most of their time fighting with themselves as opposed to the Democrats. Well, Nikki Haley seems to find her GOP presidential rival Vivek Ramaswamy incredibly annoying, and some online commentators apparently couldn't agree more. And this is what she said. Honestly, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber for what you say, the former governor of South Carolina said, and when she snapped at her primary debate opponent on Wednesday night. Now, the thing about it is that was a paraphrase that was stolen from a movie, and I think it was Happy Gilmore. Yeah, you'd have to look at it, but it came from a movie. I believe it was Happy Gilmore. Now, she was criticizing this biotech entrepreneur over his stance on the Chinese-owned app TikTok. That's why I brought this up. I told you the story how Vivek Ramaswamy decided, I'm going to reach the kids and I'm going to go on TikTok, which was ironic because he's also the guy that said that he believes a voting age should be moved up to 2020 or up to 25 years of age. And Vivek, they don't fucking like you. I've seen your TikToks and they ain't happening. Anyway, Nikki Haley was upset about the fact that he's on TikTok. Now, Ramaswamy had been asked about his decision to join the popular social media platform recently. He was the first GOP presidential candidate to do so, despite having criticized it as digital fentanyl. If that were true, as much as I'm on TikTok, I'd be twitching and tweaking all over the motherfucking place. But you can see me right now. I'm fairly normal, relatively speaking. Anyway, the app is banned on government-issued devices in the U.S. due to the Chinese espionage concerns. Ramaswamy said he was hoping to reach the next generation of young Americans. Well, how about you start by not excluding said young people in America? Now, Haley went on to say, this is infuriating because TikTok is one of the most dangerous social media apps we could have, Haley said before delivering her exasperated burn. The most dangerous social media app. I've been on it for 3 years. I've got my share of followers. I've done literally thousands of TikToks, and I've been harmed in no way, 0 ways. And you want to blame TikTok. And I'm not saying TikTok is without blame on some things. They probably are. I use them for what I want to use them for, and I don't go any deeper than that. But are you telling me Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, or X aren't doing the same things? Because they are. The fact that Donald Trump and you folks have this buzzword of China, oh my God, China's trying to take us over. Well, that's been going on for a long time. It had nothing to do with the app. It had to do with a lot of people selling property to China. We have a lot of issues with China, but this app is not the source of the problem. the source of the problem is a government and people in the government that are too greedy and will sell anything to anybody. So, and let's be honest, Nikki Haley's never going to be the candidate. She's got two things working against her, and she really only seems to be the most reasonable one in spite of what she said about TikTok. But she's a woman, and she's of East Indian descent. You really think the Republicans are going to make her the nominee? I think not. Now, in 2024 campaign ad released last month, Haley, a former United Nations ambassador, emphasized her stance on fighting Chinese tyranny. Well, Nikki, you were a Trump humper. You're a big time Republican. How about you focus on the fascism right in this fucking country, precipitated by your very own fucking party? Now, while her Ramaswamy line was one of the most biting out of the night, New York Times columnist Carlos Lozada pointed out that Haley had been effusive about Ramaswamy's first book, Woke Incorporated, in a blurb. There was one other comment that was made, and it was by Chris Christie. He was directly calling out Donald Trump. He said, Donald Trump is not here, and you know why? Because he's afraid. He's a coward. He will not show up. And then Chris Christie thought he'd try to tell a joke, and he says, Donald Trump doesn't start coming to these debates. Instead of being called Donald Trump, we'll be calling him Donald Duck, as he's ducking the debates, and Donald Duck the cartoon. Very clever, Chris Christie. Your timing is a little shitty. The joke is only half-assed, but you're a Republican, so that was pretty good for a Republican. There was only one guy that was worse, and he was kind of creepy in his process for doing that, and that is creepy Mike Pence. Now, I only saw a clip of this. I've always said that if you're not somebody who has a natural ability of being funny, don't try to be funny, because it will never come off good. Doesn't make you a bad person if you're just not a person with a sense of humor. It's just that, I don't run the 40 because I can't win. I maybe couldn't even make 40 yards. So I'm not running the 40. And if you're not funny, don't try to be funny. Well, Mike Pence, I don't even know why he said this. Somebody was talking about, I don't know, maybe Hunter Biden sleeping. I think it was Joe Biden. Joe Biden's wife maybe isn't in the union, but she's a teacher, and they were trying to nail him that way. And Mike Pence comes out and says, I gotta give full disclosure here. I've been sleeping with a teacher for 38 years who is in the union, meaning his wife. And he kind of smirked like, I did a good one. Nobody fucking laughed. Everybody thought it was creepy. Mike, don't try to be funny. The only time you're funny is when you don't intend to be funny. Just go with that. All right. Now, the Ways and Means Committee chairman, Jason Smith, a Republican from Missouri, who I'd never seen before until I saw this video, appears to be an absolute dolt. If you don't know what dolt means, just Google that shit and you'll figure it out. And you go, yep, that's fucking him. He became defensive and accusatory after repeatedly being unable to answer a reporter's questions in a press conference Wednesday held to announce what House Republicans claim is evidence against President Joe Biden. Let me just add this, along with not trying to be funny when you're not funny, don't hold a press conference when you have no fucking evidence, because somebody's going to ask you about the fucking evidence. A shortened version of the video posted by the news organization Heartland Signal went viral, garnering nearly 1 million views in under 3 hours on social media platform X. And the quote goes like this: Mr. Chairman, question about the timing of all this. This comes from an NBC News reporter. I think his name is Ryan Nobles. You're talking about a two-tiered system of justice. If I'm not mistaken, on August 7th, 2020, Bill Barr was the Attorney General, and Donald Trump was the president. So explain to me where the two-tiered system of justice comes into play. And then the WhatsApp message you have, I believe, is dated for June 6, 2017. Joe Biden is not vice president at that time or even a candidate for president at that time. So where is the direct connection to some sort of criminal malfeasance within these two pieces of evidence? Now, Chairman Smith had a little trouble with that. He could not only not answer any part of those questions, he appeared to forget a portion of them. And this is what he said, and this is typical of a Republican. Well, I think the facts speak for themselves. No, motherfucker, you're saying there's evidence. You've shown us no evidence, so tell us. There's over 700 pages of examples where people should be very concerned when you're talking about, what was your first question? Now, the one thing you should know how to do when you become a Republican, well, the three things you should know how to do: divert, distract, and delay. He doesn't even know how to do that. He's not doing well. Now, Smith went on to say, it doesn't matter who's in the White House after being reminded them president at the time was Donald Trump. We need to make sure that the Department of Justice works for all people and doesn't treat those who are politically connected or wealthy much differently. And unfortunately, we have several examples that came forward by two IRS whistleblowers that proves that people are treated differently because they are politically connected. You mean like Donald Trump? All the crimes he committed while in the White House? There's an investigation, and then Bill Barr acts if nothing has happened, and Donald Trump tells us he's been exonerated. You mean like that kind of two-tiered justice? Nobles then asked, are you suggesting that Joe Biden, being the president now, is unfairly treating Donald Trump in this indictment? Again, Smith did not answer the question. What I'm talking about is the 700 pages that we have before us, which is all the information that came from the IRS whistleblowers who have been discredited by other IRS officials. And that's what we're releasing right now, Smith replied, again, not answering Noble's question. And I'll tell you, I would encourage everyone in this room to look at those 700 pages. If you think it's okay with what's in it, then we live on two different planets. 700 pages. Are you going to read 700 pages where you know there's no evidence? I'm not. Fuck yourself. It's your job to call out that evidence and show us the evidence. There's 700 pages. You say there's evidence in there. How hard would it be to go and, I don't know, use a yellow marker and just mark the spots that show where the crimes are committed? But you can't even do that. You want to delay, distract, and divert by giving somebody a pile of papers and say, it's all right there, you got to read it. It's kind of like the Trumplafucks back in the day when they say, do your research. Well, motherfuckers, we have done the research. Apparently you haven't done the research or don't like how the research comes out. So you just make shit up. Then Nobles asked, can you explain the timing of the August 6th WhatsApp message? Why is that evidence of some wrongdoing? He said, I'm not an expert on timeline. Well, you are the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, so I would think you have half a fucking brain. But Smith admitted that he's not an expert before pivoting to say, I would love to have President Biden and his family tell us about all these timelines, because it's really, really unfortunate that we see so many meetings and so many phone calls that involved around the official activity that the vice president has been participating in, and then big sums of money follows later. Yet the actual witnesses that they brought up today were not fact witnesses. They have no direct knowledge of anything. They're talking about theory. And even those people have said, yeah, there's no evidence. Nobles went on to say, but he's not the president or vice president at the time. Where's the wrongdoing? He wasn't even a candidate for president, Nobles pointed out. He was a candidate, Smith claimed. On August 6th, Nobles began before Smith interrupted him. So apparent, what source are you with? Chairman Smith asked. He said, I'm with NBC, the reporter replied. So apparently you'll never believe us, Smith charged. No, we'll never believe you because you guys are known for fucking lying. Noble said, I'm asking you a very direct question. You presented a piece of evidence that you say came on August 6, 2017. That demonstrates that Joe Biden was using political influence to help his son. He wasn't a political figure at the time. The first WhatsApp message you put up, where you talk about the brand, Nobles explained, I'm completely open-minded about this. I'm asking you a specifically, how does that demonstrate that there was some sort of political influence put over him if at the time he is not political, he's not an elected official? And Chairman Smith says, I'm definitely not going to pinpoint one item. Well, you're having a fucking hearing here. You want to impeach this guy. When are you going to pinpoint something that's illegal, or at least support the things that you say are the evidence you have? Now, Smith said, so apparently you don't agree with that. So report that you disagree with it. I'll take the next question. Yes, Smith said, refusing to answer any of Noble's question. See, this is the thing. They talk like they have all this evidence, but they won't answer simple questions, whether it be in the hearing or out on the front steps of the Capitol. It doesn't matter. They can't answer the question, so they don't answer the question, but they say, it seems really fishy. That's well and good. There's a lot of things that seem fishy, like $2 billion going to Jared Kushner to invest, who has no background in investing. That's a little fishy. Why aren't we talking about that? Here's two things that the Republicans thought they were going to gain a lot of ground on: the GOP debate and the impeachment hearings. Neither one of them. No one could give a shit about either one. I'm sure the audience for the debate was kind of weak because Donald Trump didn't show up. Nothing was accomplished. Nothing was decided. The only person that lost in that debate was the American people, the Republicans in America, because they found nothing out. They didn't see anybody step forward to be an apparent candidate in 2024. Now, keep in mind, we're entering October of 2023. We're a little over a year before the election, and maybe a couple of months before the primaries. And nobody knows who's going to be the candidate. Oh, sure, you might say that it's going to be Donald Trump, but I beg to differ. Donald Trump's got some bigger issues, like being a broke-ass bitch, like going on trial, facing 91 felony charges. You really think he's going to be a good presidential candidate? I mean, look, he's got no money coming in from his businesses. All the money he grifts goes to his legal defense. Where's the money going to come from for him to run for president? As it is, he can't win. If he's got no money to run for president, is that really who the Republicans want being their nominee? I think at some point between now and 2024, the Republicans are going to have to step away from Donald Trump because it's a no-win situation. He can't win the election, and he keeps bringing the Republican Party down. As long as they allow MAGA to control the Republican Party, especially in the House, they're going to get nowhere. They're going to come close to the election, and they're going to have to scramble to find a candidate that won't embarrass them in 2024. That's going to be a hard job because there's a lot of people that want to run for president, but none of them have any support. And the people that support Donald Trump, if he's not the nominee, there's a better than even chance that they just won't even vote. So you'll have a lot of Republican voters that won't even go to the fucking polls. So good luck with that, motherfuckers. You're in some deep trouble. Now, you remember how Mark Meadows wanted to take his RICO case in Georgia to the federal courts, and they said, yeah, no. And prior to that, Donald Trump said, I may want to take it to federal court too. He was just waiting to see how it worked out with Mark Meadows. Mark Meadows didn't get what he wanted. And now Donald Trump has come out and said, um, Donald Trump's Georgia RICO election case will not be taken to federal court, despite a previous filing by his attorneys that they might seek removal. So he's not going to try to take it to federal court, which is probably wise because he's tried it before in Manhattan. It didn't work. It didn't happen. It didn't work for Mark Meadows or anybody else. It's not going to work here. It's just going to be shuffling your feet and not getting what you want. So I give Trump credit for at least thinking realistically. Trump's one-page filing published in September told Judge McAfee President Trump hereby notifies the court that he may seek removal of his prosecution to the federal court under 28 U.S.C. 1442 and 1445. His written waiver of arraignment was filed on August 31st, 2023. To be timely, his notice of removal must be filed within 30 days of his arraignment. Now, Trump on Thursday decided he wouldn't make such a request. And the fact is, he didn't make one anyway. He didn't say, I definitely want to pursue taking this to federal court. He said, I may want to do it. That isn't even a fucking legal filing. I don't even know what he was thinking he was trying to do. He was just testing the waters, maybe. Now, according to a court filing discovered by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Trump has notified the court that he won't seek such a change. I mean, what difference is it going to make? The move comes after Mark Meadows' similar request was denied. Now, Tamar Hallerman of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution wrote, the move is a big surprise. Conventional wisdom for a long time was that Trump would try removal and then appeal any losses. Well, all this shit costs money. And remember what I said early on, Donnie's running out of motherfucking money. In fact, his money pit or pit of money is going dry. Absolutely going dry. And so it may have been a financial decision, but you know, who really fucking knows? Now, of course, the big thing that we're interested in, the Republicans have all kinds of things that are causing noise and problems. But the real big thing is that the government may be shut down on Sunday. The odds the government will be at least technically closed for a day rose Thursday as both House and Senate leaders talked about efforts to prevent a shutdown dragging into the weekend. Things are coming down to the wire, said Chuck Schumer on the Senate floor. Schumer told senators they can expect to have a procedural vote on Saturday before getting to a vote on the Senate short-term funding bill, keeping the government's lights on through November 17th. Now, keep in mind, it's still got to go through the House, and that doesn't seem likely at this point. That process could drag into Sunday and almost certainly would not resolve the issue entirely, since House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has said he's not interested in having the House vote on the Senate bill. McCarthy's struggles to unite his conference are the major force pushing the government toward a shutdown. You remember during the debt ceiling thing, Kevin was talking strongly like this too. This is what Republicans do. They act strong till the last minute, then they fucking cave. We'll see if he does it this time. Saturday night is when the funding officially runs out, which would make Sunday the first day of a government shutdown. Essentially, functions necessary to preserve life and safety would still be fulfilled, but many government workers would be sent home, and others, like military personnel and border agents, would have to work without pay. Now, McCarthy also hinted Thursday lawmakers will not meet the Saturday night deadline. He was on CNBC. McCarthy declared, if you want to do it by a clock, I don't know what to give you the odds on a clock. But if you want to gauge at the end of the day, do we get this done? The answer is yes. I don't give up if the clock runs out, he added. I'm okay playing in overtime. Oh, he's so clever. A shutdown beginning and ending during a weekend would likely have only limited impact, and expect them to use that to their benefit. Politically, it would give McCarthy and Republicans proof they tried to push the White House and Democrats into a border policy changes, but without any of the inconveniences to the public that would happen if the shutdown extended into the regular week. And that's a good point. You know, he did that with the debt limit raising. He just wants to be able to say, well, boys, I did everything I could, but this is what we've got. I don't think that's going to be enough for Matt Gaetz or some of the other Freedom Caucus folks. The interesting thing is, will they actually try to vacate his position? I've said all along, I don't think they will, because that'll expose them for how weak they are. They didn't take a vote on the impeachment stuff because they know it wouldn't win. They won't take a vote on vacating Kevin McCarthy because that won't win. Now, that said, there are times when the Republicans will do stuff even if they know they're going to lose, which is absolutely stupid, but that's the Republicans. The only good news about any of this is that it will happen over a Sunday, and of course, that will not have a big impact, said Bill Hoagland, senior vice president with the Bipartisan Policy Center and veteran of the previous shutdowns, while a budget staffer in the Senate. It's that Tuesday and Wednesday when it will start to show some impact, he said. And he's right. What will be done? What will happen? We don't really know. As we've said before, the one thing, it will be better than if they had not raised the debt ceiling. But that doesn't mean it's going to be good. A lot of people won't be getting their checks. A lot of people won't be getting their money. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how this all shakes out. Now, Donald Trump is going to be pretty busy in 1 month. He's got Donald Trump will have to sit for 2 separate depositions in 1 month. Donald Trump will have to sit up there under oath, probably pleading the fifth. Doesn't fucking really matter. He's still going to be found guilty. The president's deposition in a case involving former FBI agents has been scheduled for October 17th, while Trump's deposition in a case involving his former lawyer was reportedly scheduled for October 3rd. Which is interesting because his civil lawsuit with Letitia James is scheduled for October 2nd. Now, in the first case, there's concern that the government shutdown could cause disruption of the suit brought by FBI agents Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Those are the two. They were talking about the affair they had and the text messages and how they hated Donald Trump. Now they're suing Donald Trump and will probably win. The case was brought against the Justice Department, but they allege that by extension, former President Trump was inappropriately involved in using their personal information to attack them. The Justice Department sought to block Trump from being compelled to answer questions about the handling of the text messages between FBI attorney Lisa Page and FBI agent Peter Strzok that exposed their opposition to his candidacy and a personal relationship. They got embarrassed and they're in trouble. Now they're going to fight back and suing the DOJ and Donald Trump. Let's do one more story because I love happy stories, and this one makes me oh so happy. My Pillow CEO Mike Lindell warned that his company was in danger of collapsing after American Express reduced his line of credit from $1 million down to $100,000. Now that is fucked up, but you can understand why this is happening. Mike Lindell and his company My Pillow is hemorrhaging money. They're not a good credit risk anymore. The fact that he still has $100,000 worth of credit is a little crazy. I mean, Mike, you're not selling pillows. How are you going to pay that shit back? Now, and I'll give you an idea how serious of a guy he is. During a Thursday interview with conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, who's virtually broke too because of a lawsuit by the Sandy Hook parents, explained how his company had spiraled downward after retailers stopped selling his merchandise, and Fox News made a dirty deal to settle a lawsuit with the Dominion voting systems. Lindell is also facing a lawsuit from the voting machine company. When that happened, I had vendors getting very nervous, and banks get very nervous about my bills, he recalled. They're calling me up. I said, no, that doesn't even go into court until next year. Okay, next year's fine, but you're going to fucking lose. Lindell said things got worse after American Express decreased his line of credit. Well, then when American Express did this 2 weeks ago, Alex, it's vendor after vendor I had to meet with, he revealed. They want to pull out their credit lines. He said one vendor threatened to cut his terms from 120 days to 60 days. Instead of 120, you have 60 days where you're basically collapsing a whole company, Lindell complained. So I've had to meet with each individual vendor and give them peace of mind saying, hey, we're here to stay. Yeah, well, there's a lot of things you said, Mike Lindell, that weren't exactly true. So I'd be surprised if they believe you. If you do this, you do collapse us like American Express is trying to do, he added. And it's just a terrible, terrible attack. I mean, who knew? He was just trying to be a patriot, standing with his president, Donald Trump. Sure, he was spewing lies about election fraud and all this stuff, spending all kinds of money to do this. He gets sued by Dominion. He'll probably lose to the tune of $1.6 billion. But who knew this would affect his company like this? My goodness. Jesus, Mike. I was talking to somebody, I think I was talking to Old Soul, and she said this was kind of an addictive behavior. Apparently, he's addictive to destroying himself and his company because that's exactly what he did. Now, I think I mentioned, and a lot of us mentioned here on the Rational Boomer podcast a year or two ago, that he was basically going to crash his company. Now, if we or me sitting in my living room could realize that 2 years ago, why did it take Mike Lindell until now, until the disaster is already hit? He could have walked away a couple of years ago and go, that's too rich for me. I'm not doing this anymore. But he didn't. So he fucked around and he found out. Sorry to say, if anybody deserves this kind of situation, it's Mike Lindell. If he's a businessman of any sort, he should have known this. He should have backed out when he could and saved his life and his company. But instead, he thought he was right. He thought Donald Trump was right, even though we know Donald Trump is an absolute fucking imbecile. The only person that's comparably as dumb as Donald Trump has to be Mike Lindell. Mike's not as in big a trouble yet as Donald Trump because I don't know that he's got any criminal charges or he will get criminal charges, but he could, depending on what he was doing on January 6th. But if nothing else, he and Donald Trump will have this in common. They were both once rich millionaires. They'll tell you billionaires, but neither one of them were. They were both rich, both relatively successful. And if they stayed out of politics, they'd still be doing it now, and they'd be able to ride this off into the sunset and be comfortable until they die. Trouble is, both decided, my ego's telling me you got to go for broke. And guess what? They both ended up fucking broke. So fuck you. You deserve it. All right. We are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.